This weekend in movies, let's do it!
Now he's looking at the iPad.
Maybe it's a maxi pad.
I'm looking at this. We're talking about X-Men.
Oh my God.
First Class. Now, this is the fourth X-Men film. This is a reboot of sorts. And the first two films were directed by Bryan Singer. The first film I was a fan of. I thought it could have been one of the best superhero films ever, but I think ultimately it was too short. It was like 97 minutes and barely had any time to really establish all the characters. So that was kind of a terrific film that could have been a lot better. X-Men 2 is very good. X-Men 3 was Brett Ratner, which is all I need to say. Right, Luke? Brett Ratner, terrible, right? Okay.
I kind of feel like people hold the name Brett Ratner against that movie, and if they'd like it better if it were just a different name
like
attached.
Terrence Malick or something?
Oh, yeah. But if it were Terrence Malick.
X-Men 2. And so what they did was they went back, and much like Scooby-Doo Babies, they went back to reestablish where all these characters met. And so now we have, directed by Matthew Vaughn, who is a very talented director who I like a lot, who did Kick-Ass, which I loved. Luke, you like Kick-Ass, right?
I did like Kick-Ass.
I like that movie a lot. A Layer Cake, which I liked a lot.
Yeah, Layer Cake with Daniel Craig's dry run for James Bond, basically.
That is very, and you know, it's funny because this film stars Michael Fassbender, and the way he sort of runs around stealthily around the docks and everything, he looks like a suave James Bond-esque spy. Now, the film, the central relationship in the film is between Michael Fassbender, who plays Erik, the once and future Magneto, and James McAvoy from Last King of Scotland, who plays the once and future Charles Xavier. And what they did right in this movie is, first of all, they cast two very good actors. Fassbender, very intense actor. You may remember him from Steve McQueen's Hunger. Just terrific. And McAvoy is also terrific. These are two terrific actors. And they also did something smart, which is they set it in the 60s, and they gave it a real historical backdrop. Essentially, the movie is not only the origin story of the X-Men, but it's sort of this secret alternate history of the Cuban Missile Crisis. And it takes place in the 60s, so you get a lot of that kind of 60s vibe without really hitting you over the head with it. And I really enjoyed that stuff. And what I really liked about the film, which I think was just terrific, is the relationship between Charles and Erik. Because here you have two characters who start out, obviously, the film not knowing each other. They meet, they become friends, and we know something has to drive them apart, and we find out what that is. And that arc, I think, was just very well realized. It's just, all that stuff is really terrific. Now, what happens is that Erik's, I won't tell you that much about it because I want you to see it because it's just terrific. Erik has somebody, I'm being purposely vague, Erik has somebody he's chasing after for a certain reason, that person being played by Kevin Bacon, and it turns out that Xavier and Erik's motives meet when Xavier and the New Mutants have to find Kevin Bacon as well. And again, I'm being purposely vague. Now let's take a look at a clip and then we'll talk more about it.
They're just kids. No, they were kids. Shaw has his army. We need ours.
We'll have to train.
We can't stay here. We've got nowhere to go.
Yes, we do.
This is yours.
No, it's ours.
Come on, time for the tour.
You know, when I do this, bad things tend to happen.
It's because you can't control it. It controls you. That's why we're here, Alex. That's why we're training. This, it's like any other muscle in the body. You can control it. Try higher frequency. Much higher. It's all right, Alex. I want you to hit the X and try not to hit me. There's a good chap.
You're serious?
I'm very serious. I have complete and utter faith in you.
It's an iPad too.
You know what I love in that clip that we just saw is I just noticed this, but all the people practicing their powers look like guys taking a really hard piss who couldn't quite aim it properly.
That's their power. They can take really hard pisses. Even the women.
But with like energy bolts and sound waves instead of urine.
Well, well, you know, in the film, there's a whole bunch of supporting characters. One played by Jennifer Lawrence, who was Oscar nominated for Winter's Bone. Another, one of the villains is played by January Jones from Mad Men. And I think a lot of these, in a script that it covers a lot of ground, a whole lot of ground, an enormous amount of ground, an impressive amount of ground, very, very well. I will say
it's nearly 2.5 hours long.
It's 2:10.
2:10.
It's
okay.
2:10. And you know what? It's 2:10, but I enjoyed it so much. If it was 10 minutes long, it'd be okay. But I have 2 knocks on the film. One is that some of these smaller characters, they need, and I'm being purposely vague again, they need to change allegiances throughout the film. And somehow I felt some of those allegiances, their reasoning wasn't that clear in their arc. I feel like it wasn't fully fleshed out. And the other knock I'll give an otherwise terrific film is Kevin Bacon, I thought was miscast. I like Kevin Bacon. There's nothing wrong with Kevin Bacon. He gives the performance Kevin Bacon always gives, but he feels like second choice. Like this guy wasn't available, so they got Kevin Bacon. You know, but otherwise, it's very well done. It's got a terrific score. It's got a couple fun cameos, and I really loved it. I thought it was great. I really, you know, and not even as a good superhero film. I thought it was a good movie. Luke, what do you think?
It is, and I think it tonally fits very well with the first couple X-Men movies. Wolverine, like everyone else, I would like to take the adamantium bullet to the head and forget that one happened. But yeah, it's tonally very similar. It has the same sense of fun, same little funny bits of character business using superhero powers. I didn't think the period setting really made a whole lot of difference in general. I mean, obviously the Cuban Missile Crisis thing happened, but in terms of the production design, it's like they still have future technology that's just as futuristic then as it is in the ones that are set slightly in the future. I just watched part 1 again, so I know that the first one is set slightly in the future, although the World Trade Center is still standing in it. And actually, 1 hasn't aged as well as I would have hoped, because it was groundbreaking at the time. There hadn't really been a superhero team movie, and we hadn't seen Wolverine realized, and Wolverine, Hugh Jackman was just great as the character, but since then, we've had a few superhero team movies and mutant movies and Marvel movies, and it feels a little dull, actually, compared to this new one. The new one captures the feeling that I had when I saw the first one, which I like a lot. And I have noticed a lot of people, criticizing Kevin Bacon, but perfect German accent, perfect. He does.
He had to speak a bunch of foreign languages.
You know,
in the film.
he does multiple languages. He's perfect at it. You know, I think he was pretty good as the character, and I think it was a substantially different performance from the villain he played in Super, which was another superhero movie that just came out. And I did sort of like how it effectively kept the tension of the Cuban Missile Crisis, even though we all know that it came out okay. I thought it was cool that they brought the yellow and blue uniforms in, despite the fact that way back when Bryan Singer said, oh, we don't use yellow because yellow doesn't photograph well. Well,
that's right.
It kind of does here. But I understand that. You know, when you're trying to introduce X-Men to the world and it's the first superhero team movie, you don't really want to go with yellow spandex right off the bat because you want to make sure people can dig the mutant concept first. One thing that's interesting is the whole prequel issue is that there are definite nods to the existing continuity of the movies, and I won't spoil them. They're some of the best parts of the movie. But there are also fairly flagrant contradictions. If this movie is part of the same continuity as X-Men 1, then Professor X is a huge liar in Part 1 when he says he met Magneto when he was 17 and they built Cerebro together. And he's like, wow, he's blocking my thoughts. How is that possible? Oh, wait, he's got a special helmet. Well, gee, Professor X is either a liar or he forgot a lot of stuff.
I want to go on record as saying I don't care about that kind of stuff. I don't.
I'm representing Geek Chic Daily. I got to get into that kind of stuff.
Just tell me a good story. That's all I care about. Here, it's funny because the ultimate example of this, and then we'll move on to Hangover 2, which is
midichlorians. I don't.
It was midichlorians, which was like, you know, that was such a raping of my childhood, midichlorians. But the thing is that if it made narrative sense, then I guess I would have bought it. But it just doesn't.
It does make narrative sense.
It's dreadful.
Darth Vader couldn't be the chosen one because the midichlorians in his body were diluted when he became a cyborg. There you go. So it had to be
blah, 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 cyborg. Okay, Star Trek. Nobody loves Star Trek more than me. I love Star Trek. I'm a Star Trek kid more than a Star Wars kid. I sat down in J.J. Abrams' Star Trek, and obviously, you know, Spock and Uhura have an affair, all this stuff that's not Star Trek. I don't care.
But he provided you a narrative device that made that possible.
Which is right. I don't care. Just tell me, make it work. Tell me a story. That's all you can. I don't care what. You can make Kirk a turtle. I don't care. If it works and the story's good, I'm on board. Even something to me as sacred as Star Trek, I was fine. Now, when Wade saw Star Trek, he hated it. Hated it because he's like, oh, because what's his name, Spock and the Uhura, they're having sex, and he hated it. And I'm like, just like this. I'm like, continuity. I just don't care. Just tell me the story.
I still like the movie a lot, and I think you could argue that the movie, by starting where it does, it starts at the same starting point as the first X-Men. Like, they have almost literally the same opening scene in the concentration camp. And it's sort of saying, okay, here's history taking a slightly different turn. I can go with that. I'm just pointing out all these things just for the benefit of people who haven't seen it and want to know where this fits in. Emma Frost is adult in this. She's a teenager in the Wolverine movie, but again, we want to forget the Wolverine movie.
Most of us do.
Rose Byrne is playing the same character Olivia Williams plays in Part 3. How she manages not to age, she must secretly be a mutant.
Because Rose Byrne is young and fresh and cute, and Olivia Williams is getting, is kind of old and haggish.
Yeah, but she's not like Ian McKellen over Michael Fassbender haggish.
That is true.
And I think Professor X and Magneto have always had a great relationship. I think, Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen in the first couple had a great dynamic, and that is continued here. I think Fassbender really plays it like a movie star here. He's been such a character actor before to me. I know there are things like Jane Eyre that I haven't seen, but in Hunger, he's a character actor, starved himself, I thought was amazing, and then did a 10-minute dialogue scene. And in Inglourious Bastards, I swear to God, I thought he was Ewan McGregor the whole time. He's doing he looked kind of like him. He's doing basically the Ewan McGregor Obi-Wan Kenobi voice. I didn't realize till the movie was over that it wasn't Ewan McGregor. This one, he's like Michael Fassbender movie star, sort of for the first time. And I see Vaughn and yes, I do see Vaughn sort of star-making him like he did with Daniel Craig a little bit.
And also, and then we'll move on to Hangover 2, also the way Hugh Jackman was the star of X-Men.
Yeah.
You're like, that guy is nailing it. That guy's going to be a star.
Yeah.
And you feel the same way about Fassbender.
Yeah, although Jackman was really nailing Wolverine specifically, too. Fassbender is not necessarily... Magneto's usually depicted as older, so I wouldn't say he's necessarily nailing that character specifically, but he's putting across a movie star persona, definitely. And I agree with you about the character motivations, by the way. I think they're scripted. I think they're scripted with enough motivation, but you don't necessarily feel it.
Sure, sure. So, buy, rent, or burn,
Buy.
you would give it a buy.
I would give it a buy.
From Lou Thompson.
Yeah.
And Mark, you would give it
A buy.
There we go. There, 2 buys.
Look at that.
Buy winning.
You're saying
Buy winning.
Go see it this weekend, is what you're saying.
Yes,
Yes.
I thought it was absolutely terrific. I really did. I thought it was great.
And it definitely, after the massive disappointment that was Wolverine, even for a guy who liked X-Men 3 like me, this is a nice return to form. I think if you like the first 2 movies, you'll like this one.
I'm on board. All right, so there you go with the X-Men. Kids love the X-Men. Now,